So there you go. That's a bit of cheap promotion for Jackie Brambles.
Not that cheap.
Oh, okay, fine. No. Tonight's tale comes from Mr. Bassett. Thank you, Mr. Bassett. Maybe if you're eating, I don't know, it might not be the most wholesome few minutes of radio you've ever heard.
Sounds good to me.
Mr. Bassett says, Father Simon, Brother Matthew, Sister Jackie, and anyone else who's rolled up. Here's my confession. I realise if you decide to use it, some names will have to be changed. This goes back nearly 50 years to when I was at high school somewhere in the north of England. I was a very shy 14-year-old who would not say boo to a goose, never mind actually talk to the girl I fancied. The girl in question, Angela, let's call her that, was stunningly gorgeous and, in my opinion, would have won any beauty contest all the way up to Miss World. I would try to look at her for as long as possible without being noticed, all the time daydreaming that she would actually approach me to ask me if I was available at the weekend.
That always works.
Walter Mitty, eat your heart out, says Mr. Bassett. Imagine the most amazing girl of all time and then add even more amazingness. That'll be her.
Yep.
Sadly, there were also some boys at the school who were the typical school bullies, who everyone used to avoid like the plague, me included. They were ruffians, Father Simon, the worst kind, who would prey upon anyone who wasn't in their gang. They were called Nobby, Chunks and Dog Breath.
Great.
Also, there was a fourth member. Sometimes Steve Knuckles Smith was with them. He was horrible as well. Now, there was a shop on the corner across from our school, and every now and then I used to go across and get a dripping sandwich and beefed crisps for my lunch. Different times.
Yeah.
And if I had enough money, I'd get 2 ounces of midget gems, because they sold sweets like that back then. If you don't remember, these were Lyons Confectionery. One of their biggest sellers. They were like wine gums, but a lot harder. Liverpool Football Club had their own branded version of midget gems
indeed.
back in the day. So on the way back to the school gate, the bullies I mentioned were loitering with intent at the entrance, and one of them, Nobby, I think, noticed the midget gems sticking out of my back pocket, and within 1 minute my midget gems were no more and they were their midget gems, and the bullies were laughing and chewing at the same time. Now this is where I hatched the plan to get my own back, but not in a physical way, as I was no match for 5 burly cavemen, and also I feel that there is too much violence in the world. Wouldn't you agree?
So true.
No, yes.
I mean, difficult to say, no, I think this No, I was going to use my brain power, Father Simon. I waited until I saw them loitering at the gate. I went to the corner shop, I bought 2 ounces of midget gems, and I then...
Wow, okay.
I then proceeded to stick each midget gem individually up my nose.
No!
And then put them back into the bag again.
Of course.
I don't know if you've ever tried inserting confectionery up your nose, Father Simon, but it does require considerable application and focus.
Yeah.
Obviously, no one should try this at home.
No.
Even if you're tempted, don't put wine gums, any kind of gum, any kind of confectionery at all up your nose. Mr. Bassett says, making sure the bag was visible from my pocket, I headed back to the gate and the bullies' reception. I saw them eyeing my pockets and they noticed the sweets. However, then it all fell apart, as talking to the bullies was the girl of my dreams. And when the chief bully had my sweets in his hands, then offered the bag to Angela, to which she replied, "Oh, midget gems are my favourite." What was I to do? Own up, so Angela would avoid the snot-covered sweets, or keep quiet so my face would still look the same in the morning? Obviously, I took the latter option. So, Father Simon, I confess that I said nothing and watched as the fabulous and gorgeous woman, the girl I loved more than anything else, ate about 10 of my midget gems.
10?
10.
Dear,
now with extra lubrication. I do not wish forgiveness from the bullies, but I do ask for forgiveness from Angela and hope she would forgive me if she found out. I've not had a midget gem since then. I switched to American hard gums, as there was no way that I could put any of those up my nostril.
No, that's too big.
The preventative measure.
Absolutely. Also, they get stuck in your teeth. Something rotten. Never mind getting stuck in your nose. Anyway, Sister Jackie Brambles goes first.
I'm sorry. I can't forgive that. I mean, when you saw the beautiful Angela reaching for the midget gem, you should have hurled yourself between her and the the afflicted sweeties and saved her from that fate. Oh, no. No.
Okay, no forgiveness from Jackie Bramble's brother from another gutter.
I'm going to forgive, and here's why, and there's two reasons why. Number one is struck me as a perfect revenge here in not using violence, but using your brain
and your nose too.
Yeah, and your nose to be able to get back at the bullies. But also, forgive me if I'm wrong here, but Angela was there when they were nicking his midget gems, and she did nothing. In fact, she ate 10 of the midget gems in front of him. Your best shot. Dodged a bullet there. Sounds like Angela was not quite the catch that she was being depicted as, so I'm definitely going to forgive from Angela, who's quite happy to stand by and watch people being relieved of their midget gems.
She might have had the radiance of a Miss World, but she had the morals of a sewer.
Correct.
Right.
A lot of
Unlucky.
mucus she didn't count on.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, a tasteful confession, I think. What do you think? Forgiveness or no for Mr. Bassett? On the text, please, 61054. First word is Simon for the People's Verdict. Before the news, tonight's confession from Mr. Bassett, who was in love with Angela back in the day when he was at school. But unfortunately, there were bullies at his school who stole his midget gems. So his revenge was to buy more midget gems. But before they were stolen, to put each one up his nose and then back in the bag. Unfortunately for Mr. Bassett, they were mainly eaten by Angela, who was talking to the bullies. Anyway, the People's Verdict has arrived. Here it is.
Everyone's forgiving. Jim in Doncaster, forgiven. It all worked out in the end. Angela was hanging out with the bullies, so obviously she wasn't a great lady. Stood by and stole the sweeties. Simon says, forgiven. I agree with Matt. She was happily stealing his midget gems. Deserves everything she got. And Rachel says, forgiven. I've heard of people revenge licking sweets, but swishing those midget gems around his nostrils was a genius move. Bit grim, but no harm done to anyone, and very funny.
And obviously don't try any of that. Don't put confectionery up your nose at all.
No, don't do that.
If in doubt. Consult a doctor. Anyway, if you have a confession, we would love to hear about it. Send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. If we use it, you get a smart speaker, and that is the deal. Well, it's confession time. Let's gather our crew together. There's the brother from another gutter.
Yep.
Live to Jackie Bramble's special secluded studio in the elite part of the world in which she has chosen to live. There you go. That's as specific as we're going to get. Today's confession comes from Robert. Robert, thank you very much indeed for this, which says, Father Simon, Brother Matt, and the unforgiving Sister Jacqueline. Well, that's very true. This is a story that's become folklore. And the history, I'm afraid to say, I have not passed on. I have not told most of my closest friends. So here my confession. Back in the mid-'80s in Glasgow, I met the most wonderful girl from the other side of the city, lived in a posh area, and had a highfalutin job in a bank. She was beautiful, fun, and too sophisticated for the likes of me. As my father said, you are dreaming, boy. Thanks, Dad, for all your support there.
Yeah.
So I decided it was time to secure the love of my life and propose marriage to my dream girl. And what better way to do it than to do it at work? So I promptly wrote to the bank where she worked and asked for permission to visit the computer centre and propose. To my delight, they wrote back shortly afterwards, granting my request, but asked me to phone their head of security and consumer relations to arrange it. Well, tiresome Timothy was a screechy-voiced, snobby head of security who decided that he would be orchestrating the event with all the, quotes, bank-related process and procedure that he felt would be appropriate. He said many times, there will be no monkey business. And he went on to explain over the next 4 weeks how the security of the bank computer centre was similar to visiting the vault itself, and I'd be under no illusions about the serious nature of this. I had to phone tiresome Timothy twice a week to listen to his updates and dreary rantings about the privilege. The agreement, if it could be called that, was that I would appear at the bank reception, present myself to security at 3 p.m, be taken to a waiting lounge before being escorted to the operations centre. I would offer myself in, hand over the flowers, and be ejected at the rear staff entrance at 3:12, having done my proposal. Operator 3098 would be at the input portal, and I wouldn't be allowed beyond that space. Wait a minute, I said. Her name is Lizzie. She's not operator 3098. Irrelevant young man, I was told the bank needs to maintain security protocol. There will be no monkey business at the bank. It sounds like it's in Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
Anyway, the appointed day arrived and I had secreted a day's holiday from work and borrowed a car so that I could be in the city near the bank for the right time. I headed off really early so that I would get a decent parking space and be sure to get there on time. 3 p.m. it was, and I approached Fort Knox and presented myself at security to be checked, an uncomfortable frisking. And afterwards I met manager Jim, who took me to the 5th floor staff toilets to get dressed and be ready. On a knock at the door, I emerged to face Tiresome Timothy and Jim to go through to the computer centre. Now, this is where I should have said that whilst I was... This is an unlikely paragraph. We're taking an unlikely turn here. Okay. This is where I should have said that whilst I was waiting in the car, I noticed a fancy dress shop and I hired a gorilla suit. I hired a gorilla suit and I bought a
very large monkey.
Yes, absolutely. And I bought a 4-foot inflatable banana. I promptly rushed to the car and blew up the banana and then subsequently fainted from the effort, only to be roused by 2 women who'd seen my plight and dragged me from the car to revive me. Anyway. So Tiresome Timothy was incensed. "I told you, no monkey business," he bellowed. I responded by saying that a gorilla was an ape. And not a monkey.
That's true.
Which set manager Jim into fits of laughter as Tiresome Timothy shriveled like a crisp packet in the oven and he disappeared. After manager Jim had controlled himself, he let me into what looked like the bridge of the Starship Enterprise, and my future fiancée was stationed at the control console, looking amused as we approached. Anyway, in my outfit, I recited a love poem that I had shakily scribbled on my banana. She was She responded with many yeses to the delight of her friends and workmates, and the assembled press took lots of photos. The assembled press had turned up because the bank had arranged that and asked questions for the next hour before manager Jim escorted us back to reception and told Karen to take the rest of the day off. "I haven't had as much fun in the bank for 20 years, he said. We even got featured in the Scottish National Press the next day and beat Chancellor Nigel Lawson to a page 2 feature. See attached clipping." And he says, attach the clipping as well, so it definitely happened. Anyway, I seek forgiveness for my prank, not from Tiresome Timothy, who really treated me like a tedious task, and not from my long-suffering wife, who treated the whole thing as a fun day and been constantly laughing about it for 35 years of marriage. I would like forgiveness from the bank customers who would have had to accommodate delayed checkbooks, statements and transactions, especially after I knocked the mag tapes over with my large banana as I attempted the best gorilla strut that I could manage. I know he's pushing it now. I think he's definitely pushing it. I'm grateful to the bank, now absorbed into some modern conglomeration, and to your listeners, I hope they'll be lenient. Sister Jackie, what do you make of this confession from the bank from Robert?
Well, I'm going to go against type here, and love conquers all, as well as inflatable bananas and men in large gorilla suits. So
Yes.
you are forgiven. You are forgiven, especially because it's 35 years on and you're still together. That's so
Still
lovely.
together.
Can't help myself.
What an extraordinary proposal of marriage that was. Brother from another
Yeah, I
gutter.
mean, as a rule, I tend to be against proposals of marriage in the workplace. I don't think it works, really.
No.
No, I'm very, very much against that. But I think in this case, I'm definitely going to forgive, because genius move by dressing up as a gorilla and pointing out that is an ape and not a monkey. Well done. And the 4-foot banana with the love poems on it, even better. So, yes, I'm going to be forgiven.
Okay, the people's verdict, please, is needed for Robert's confession with the proposal of marriage, the ape suit and the banana. Do you forgive? 61054, please. First word is Simon. 61054. The people's verdict is expected soon. Just before the news, our confession involved a proposal in Glasgow in the 80s, dressing up as an ape and a 4-foot inflatable banana. Anyway, and also we had the press cutting, so it definitely happened. Thank you very much indeed for sending that in, Robert.
Mm-hmm.
Change the names, obviously. People's verdict is in. What do they say?
Everyone forgives tonight. Kevin in Leighton Buzzard, definitely forgiven, getting those strange looks in the gym as I laughed at the confession. Albert in Croydon, I forgive him after that magnificent effort to propose. The only one to look like the monkey was Tiresome Timothy. And Mitch in Leeds says, one of the best confessions, he's absolutely right. A gorilla is not a monkey.
So it seems to be that detail which has won a lot of people over. Send your tale, please, to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Meantime, some important business to be done here with a confession from Percy, who gets the smart speaker for today. Father Simon and the Confessional Collective. The story I have chosen to seek forgiveness for on this occasion took place in 1971. It was another parents' evening. I think this person has sent in one previously. Anyway, it's another parents' evening story. Parents' evening at my Hertfordshire Village Secondary School, which prided itself not only on its academic prowess, but also its state-of-the-art cookery, woodwork, metalwork, and art facilities. As I walked through the school with my parents, past the brightly lit cookery room, on what was a particularly warm evening, I noticed the wonderful display of mouth-watering morsels made by talented pupils, proudly arranged on tables around the room. Cakes, bread, trifles and sponges.
Wow.
All looking fantastic, and immediately people are going to be very worried about the state of this food. I also noticed that the back door of the room was propped open to allow some air to flow into the rather stuffy room. The cookery teacher was happily showing off her pupils' incredible creations to the very proud parents. All the parents had been provided with a plan of the school, as you do at Parents' Evening, showing which teacher could be found in which classroom, and as pupils were not invited into the meetings, said they were expected to sit and wait outside the room. I wasn't sure why I had to be there at all, to be honest. I was already bored, decided to leave my parents talking to my maths teacher, and wandered off to see if I could find any of my friends. It seemed they'd all managed to avoid Parents' Evening, so I was on my own. I headed for my favourite place, the school's small farm, where we had rural study lessons. I didn't know that there was
a farm.
A farm,
How
and
fancy.
they had rural study lessons. There were potting sheds and vegetable patches, an enclosure full of geese, and a pigsty, currently housing 5 impossibly large, muddy pigs. Seeing the geese, I suddenly had a flash of genius inspiration. To be honest, I had a bit of a gripe with the cookery teacher after she'd been scathing with her criticism of my culinary skills. I did feel I deserved a little bit of retribution. I looked at the gate to the pigsty, directly opposite the open back door to the cookery room.
Oh, no.
Oh, dear.
I glanced about. There was no one inside, Father Simon. In a trice, the gate was open, and the excited piggies, who could smell the delicious aromas, were making a beeline or a pig line for the cookery room door, jostling each other to be the first inside. It was pig versus pig. It was vicious. They stormed into the cakes. They stormed into the breads. They stuffed themselves. They trampled on the trifles. They threw the sponges from pig to pig as if it was some kind of sport.
They didn't.
To you, to me, to you, to me, they went. One of them was called Napoleon. Father Simon, I have to report that it was carnage. So obviously, I didn't hang around. I heard the hysterical squeals of the horrified teacher, the shouts of bewildered parents, and the ecstatic grunts of the gorging pigs. I melted into the shadows and made my way back to the classroom, where my parents were just finishing their conversation with my maths teacher. And there they found me, sitting patiently, waiting for them, totally oblivious to the mayhem happening across the playground. Until today, no one has ever found out who let the pigs out. Who? Father Simon, in the collective, I seek forgiveness not from the pigs, who had a banquet, nor the cookery teacher, who was way too harsh about my best efforts, but from the terrified parents who were charged down by 5 very large, ravenous pigs, and also the pupils who spent long hours creating those edible delights enjoyed by said pigs. I mean, it obviously looked like some fantastic display, but anyway, Percy says, I await your decision on tenterhooks. Let's see what the normally very condemnatory Sister Jackie makes of this. What do you say to Percy?
Well, I'm not so bothered about ruining the cooking of the students, or indeed, exacting revenge on the cookery teacher. But everybody knows that pigs are gluten intolerant.
Oh,
so you should.
Are they?
You made them poorly. You made them very, very poorly. I don't know. I just made that up.
Oh, right.
You had me going there for a moment. Maybe it's just a certain...
I was reaching.
It's a certain type of pig.
That's gluten intolerant.
That's gluten intolerant.
What, like
yeah.
picky
There must
ones?
be one or two.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just made that up. Okay, fine. If you're
I'm
going to be
still not forgiving.
okay, you got to be judgmental. You can base it
Yes.
on anything you fancy, really. Brother from another gutter.
I mean, I like this idea to begin with of the parents' evening without any students there. That's definitely an improvement on the parents' evenings I had to endure for the last 7 years. But I would say there is a problem with the system here. What are you doing keeping your pigs next to the cookery classroom?
Well, the door-
Makes no
okay,
sense.
the gate was
Yes,
closed.
well,
Health
the
and
gate
safety.
normally is closed, but what's the point? You don't put the pigs next to where you're making all the food. It was an accident waiting to happen, and frankly, Percy was just the first where that was, but it was definitely going to happen at some point. So really, nothing to forgive, and certainly he got away with telling a few porkies. Oh yes,
Hey.
oh back of the net from Williams. So yes, forgiven.
really.
Yeah.
61054. Do you forgive Percy? Yes or no? It's the people's verdict, and it's due next. Before the news, Percy's confession involving pigs, a parent-teacher's evening at a school, and a whole classroom of food that got destroyed by the rampaging pigs. That's basically it. People's verdict is in. Here it comes.
So Jackie Hill in Chester says, not forgiven. As a retired cookery teacher, I'm bothered about the carnage caused to the pupils' food. They would have spent time and money and care creating their recipes.
Fair.
However, Doris says, forgiven. I agree with Matt. Why would you have a load of pigs living next door to the cookery class? It was an accident waiting to happen. And Sue says, forgiven. This was probably the pigs' best day ever. The poor things have to live in a muddy pit. So I think they deserve a nice treat.
It was certainly a good day for the pigs, you
Yes.
have to say. So pig confessions, farm confessions, cookery confessions, parent-teachers meetings, all these confessions are very welcome. If you have one, send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. If we use it, you get a smart speaker. That's basically the deal. It's 5:48. Welcome to our confessional. Sister Jackie, ahead of her big Live Aid Spectacular tonight at 7 o'clock. Just checking in that you're there.
Afternoon all.
Brother from another gutter is here.
Yes.
In his Caribbean shirt, inspired by Nigel, doubtless.
Indeed.
Here we go with today's tale then. Last of the week comes from Jill. Jill says, Dear Simon and the gang, I would like to make a confession. It's a confession that goes back to my high school days when I was a young part-time goth.
Oh,
With
good.
a talcum powdered face. I used talcum powder as my mother refused to buy me actual face powder as she feared that this was another passing phase. Anyway, I had black back-combed hair, thickly drawn around eyes with makeup. I also had a pair of cherry red Doc Martens that I bought from a charity shop, as we couldn't afford new, so I couldn't be picky with colour choices, hence being a part-time goth, which is how
Okay.
I thought of myself. By the way, on the subject of cherry red Doc Martens, Bruce Springsteen was
Yes.
wearing precisely those
He was.
on Saturday. Anyway, I did not, said Jill, I did not fit in with the cool gang at school, but neither did my friend Jane, who also loved to listen, who also, by the way, loves to listen to your show and confessions. We made a great pair and we still do now, but back in the day we were goths.
Yes, of course.
Black hair,
Yep.
eyeliner, you know the whole
Got it.
thing. It was a hot sunny day as we traipsed into our cookery lesson. I was sweating with my jumper that I was wearing because, as mentioned above, I was a part-time goth and could not risk getting a suntan. I always think goths do struggle on the beach. It's difficult to look like a goth in the summer. We were met by our cookery teacher, unlovingly named the Dragon, who roared our names on the register so loudly we expected her to start breathing flames from her nostrils. Our class was not the best behaved, I have to say, nor the nicest. Myself and Jane were regularly taunted by the class for the way we looked because we were goths, but also how quiet we were. And this went on for many, many weeks. On the morning in question, we were tasked with making some biscuits and left to our own devices. Time ticked on, and the insults were thrown around the classroom about myself and Jane. However, insults were not the only thing being thrown across the room, because when my timer went off, signalling that my biscuits were finished in the oven, I carefully opened the oven door with a sharp knife in my right hand, which always sounds like a very unwise thing to do. I crouched down, reached into the oven with my left hand to grab out the oven tray. However, I had forgotten to put on an oven glove.
Okay.
Precisely. And as my hand sizzled on the oven tray,
No.
my instant reaction was to shout, "Aha!" and launched the sharp knife across the classroom just because I flung my arms into the air. And the knife narrowly missed a few of the bullies along the way, but no one was hurt.
No one was hurt.
No one was hurt.
Everyone's fine.
okay.
But I looked around hoping that my face just gave off a look of confusion because no one seemed to know where it had come from. Well, the dragon was furious. We didn't need ovens anymore. We could have cooked our biscuits on her face. She was red with anger. She demanded that everybody stop, and she asked who threw the knife. Nobody confessed. This went on for some time, with the threat of missing break time. Terrible thing. This was more of a reward for me, who hated break anyway, so it was a chance for me being ridiculed further. So if I missed break time, I was quids in. The bell went to signal the end of the lesson. There was no confession from anyone. The bell went to signal the end of break. No confession from anyone. After a whole hour, we were sent to our next lesson with the threat of a detention for everybody if nobody owned up. Well, I did not confess to the knife. However, no detentions were issued. Apparently, Shaz the punk, who was into Sham 69 and the Angelic Upstarts, she stepped up and she took the heat. A noble sacrifice. Which leads me to ask for forgiveness. I'd like for forgiveness, please, for all of those who missed their break time and had to listen to the dragon for an hour, roaring like she did. Also, forgiveness from Shaz the Punk, who did so much for goth punk harmony in an uncaring world.
So true.
Full of big hair and bigger shoulder pads. Were you ever a goth?
I wasn't. I mean, I never dressed like a goth, but into a bit of Sisters of Mercy, Fields of the Nephilim, that kind of thing.
Jax, were you ever a goth?
No, I was more sort of shaved side of head with peroxide punky hair.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, on a positive note, says Jill at the end, the biscuits were edible. And I've also retired from being a goth, which you kind of have to do after a while, unless you're Robert Smith. Yes, a dangerous incident, but Jill was under a lot of pressure. What do we say, Sister Jackie?
Yeah, it's still kind of dumb to open an oven door with a knife.
Yes.
So I'm afraid I'm drawing a sharp line here, pardon the pun, and we're not forgiving.
Yes, if you open the oven door with a sharp knife in your hand, you're asking for trouble, particularly if you haven't got an oven glove on the other hand. Brother from another gutter.
Well, I'm going to make 2 points here. One is that, by the way, these collective punishments, that never works. The idea of tell me who did it or you're all staying in for detention never, ever works. So let's get that out of the way. The second is that, I mean, surely, is it just me? Surely the teacher should have been telling them not to open an oven door with a knife and maybe use an oven glove. So actually, in a way, wasn't it the dragon that was really at fault?
Yes,
in a way, Temple of Oven Glove would be how we'd all be remembering that now. And for that reason, I'm going to forgive.
Before it gets any worse. Okay, the people's verdict, please. Do you forgive Jill? Yes or no? 61054. The people's verdict, here it comes.
So Michael in Edinburgh says, totally forgive this one. I also had a scary home economics teacher who told us all off for burning our shortbreads. Sounds like Jill did the right thing in not fessing up. John, I agree with Matt.
Oh, yes.
Where was the teacher in the first place to tell Jill not to open an oven door with a knife and no oven mitts? It's the system. And Rachel says, forgiven on so many counts for part-time gothness and not being part of the cool gang, for withstanding the pressure of the dragon, for resisting the bullies and for the absent-mindedness of the knife in the non-gloved hand, and she still made edible biscuits. Fab confession. Now looking forward to Nigel's lamb.
As are we all. So that's very good, Jill. Thank you very much indeed. Jill gets the smart speaker. If you fancy one, send us your best confession. Confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk.